Western Pure Land, truth or legend? Welcome back everyone to Mind Podcast. In ancient legends, paradise seemed to be free of any troubles, and they always enjoyed endless peace. It appeared that they were the happiest beings in the world. However, in Buddhism, heaven or the celestial realm is not the best place. Heavenly beings are still sentient beings and remain in the cycle of birth and death. In reality, there is another place, one better than heaven, and that place is the kingdom of Amitabha Buddha. Buddhists call it the Western Pure Land. So, who had the sudden thought of the Western Pure Land? Why is it said that there is a Western Pure Land? Do they provide any evidence to convince us that a real Western Pure Land exists or not? To be honest, at first, I didn't believe at all that a Western Pure Land existed. But after I learned about Professor Wang Defeng, a philosophy professor at Fudan University in Shanghai, and read through the Tripitaka Buddhist scriptures, I must admit that my view on the Western Nirvana has truly changed. All of these mysteries will be revealed in our story today. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to watch more interesting videos. The Western Pure Land is closely associated with and inseparable from the Pure Land school. So, what is the Pure Land? If Zen Buddhism emphasizes meditation to open wisdom and directly perceive the nature of reality as a path to enlightenment, helping people attain liberation from suffering. If Vajrayana uses esoteric rituals and mantras to achieve quick enlightenment as a path suited for those with special spiritual faculties and willing to endure hardships, then the Pure Land School focuses on reciting the name of Amitabha Buddha to seek rebirth in the Western Pure Land. This is considered a practice that is easy and suitable for all levels, circumstances, and abilities of each individual. There are opposing views suggesting that Pure Land is a practice for the pessimistic and lazy, for those who dare not face suffering and instead seek refuge in the Pure Land. Such thinking is incomplete because these individuals have not fully understood the root of suffering and do not realize that, once this body is lost, where will we go? His Holiness the Jalwang Drukpa once taught, "I see nowadays that people easily believe in demons and ghosts, yet they do not believe in the presence of Buddha. This is absurd. If demons and ghosts exist, then surely Buddha exists. Why believe only in demons and ghosts? Why deny the Pure Land when you don't understand what it truly is?" Practitioners of Vajrayana should not become attached, thinking that they are practicing at a higher level and thus developing arrogance. You are practicing multiple paths at the same time, so we must know who we are and what level we are at. Do not be arrogant, for such arrogance can destroy all merit and wisdom, leading us astray and down a wrong path that even the Buddha cannot save us from. The Buddha also taught that all practices are equal. There is no higher or lower practice. Sometimes the simplest practice may be the most effective because it aligns with the practitioner's abilities. If you cannot find a practice that suits you, it will be of no benefit. This is like having a headache. You need to take headache medicine, not stomach medicine. Otherwise, you will suffer doubly, with both head and stomach pain. Because of the compassionate vows of the Buddhas, each practice has its own power and effectiveness. Those who lack happiness should cultivate the practice of Avalokiteshvara Guanyin to nurture inner happiness, which will then help them bring happiness to others. Those who lack wisdom must nurture their wisdom by reciting the mantra of Manjushri and meditating on his image and symbols. Thus, each mantra, each mudra, and each symbol in Vajrayana practice helps to fulfill the practitioner's wishes in ways that cannot be easily comprehended. Practices are like hands and feet. We cannot criticize either Theravada or Mahayana, Zen, or Vajrayana Buddhism. Criticizing in such a way is like having two hands on one body, yet using one hand to strike the other. The Buddha's teachings are the result of the compassionate vows of the Buddhas. Therefore, if we discriminate, criticize, or deny them, we are rejecting the Buddha's compassion. In the Pure Land practice, the focus is on the purity of all phenomena and the purity of the Buddha nature. Therefore, practitioners must meditate on the Buddha, recite the Buddha's name with single-minded concentration, and contemplate the Pure Land to purify their minds. By doing this, they seek rebirth in the Pure Land, so that when they leave this body behind, they can continue on the spiritual path to achieve enlightenment. Professor Wang Defeng, a philosophy professor at Fudan University in Shanghai, stated, "I recite Namo Amitabha Buddha thousands of times each day to attain the Western Pure Land. You may have to do this for several decades." The Pure Land school teaches that if you sincerely recite Namo Amitabha Buddha when you pass away, the Buddha will come and guide you to the Western Pure Land. You will be freed from the 6 realms of samsara and forever leave behind this world of affliction. Then you might wonder, how is that possible? Can you really attain the Western Pure Land just by reciting Namo Amitabha Buddha? How could it be so simple? Is the Pure Land school a scam? If all you need to do is recite Namo Amitabha Buddha, who will practice meditation? Who will follow the Vajrayana tradition to worship the Master? If you think this way, I completely understand how you feel. But not all of this is boastful talk from the Pure Land school. According to Professor Wang, many people do not truly understand the power of the phrase Namo Amitabha Buddha. Namo Amitabha Buddha is the most familiar and widely recited phrase among Buddhists. It has even become a greeting when they meet. The phrase Namo Amitabha Buddha carries 6 important meanings. The first is veneration, refuge, and worship, which symbolize reverence and devotion. The phrase also implies salvation and liberation, meaning it helps individuals escape from the cycle of samsara and suffering. The phrase Namo Amitabha Buddha is related to the fate and destiny of human beings and the influence of religious faith in life. A means nothingness, representing selflessness, emptiness, and unconditionality, which is the state before enlightenment. Da means infinite, immeasurable, and boundless. Buddha refers to the enlightened one who has completely awakened and is capable of helping sentient beings escape suffering. Thus, the phrase Namo Amitabha Buddha can be understood as venerating the infinitely enlightened one, or returning to take refuge in the infinitely enlightened one. The 16 Contemplations Sutra teaches that any sentient being who recites the name of Amitabha Buddha even once will eliminate the heavy sins accumulated over 80 billion eons. Scriptures also state that Amitabha Buddha once made a vow that any sentient being who single-mindedly recites his name will be guided by him to be reborn in the Western Pure Land. This phrase is now commonly used by Buddhists to greet each other, reminding one another to strive for enlightenment and live according to the Buddha's teachings. Amitabha Buddha is the most widely venerated Buddha in Mahayana Buddhism. His name is understood as infinite life, infinite light, with his light of wisdom shining upon countless worlds and possessing immeasurable merits. He appeared long before Shakyamuni Buddha. According to the larger Sutra of Amitabha, there was once a king named Dharmakara, who, after hearing of Buddha's teachings, renounced his throne and became a monk. He took the name Dharmakara Bodhisattva and made 48 great vows to save sentient beings. Among these vows was a great vow to purify a world and transform it into one of the most beautiful and purest realms, where any sentient being who recites his name will be guided there upon their death. Later, Dharmakara fulfilled his great vows and became Amitabha Buddha. His purified world is often envisioned by Buddhists as the Western Pure Land. In temples, you can recognize the statue of Amitabha Buddha by the following characteristics. His head adorned with spiraled hair, his eyes gazing down with a gentle expression of compassion, a faint smile conveying his vow to save sentient beings, and he is often draped in a red robe. Amitabha Buddha may be depicted standing with his right hand raised to shoulder height, pointing upward, and his left hand lowered to waist height, pointing downward, with both palms facing forward. In each hand, the index finger and thumb touch to form a circle. According to historical records, Shakyamuni Buddha is the enlightened one and the teacher of the Saha world. He once lived on this earth and founded Buddhism. The Saha world, which is full of suffering, is the very earth where humans reside. In this realm, Shakyamuni Buddha taught and transformed sentient beings, which is why people revere him as the teacher of the Saha world. He is considered a historical Buddha, not a mythical one. Amitabha Buddha is the most widely venerated Buddha in Mahayana Buddhism. His name means infinite life, signifying boundless lifespan, and infinite light, signifying boundless light. Amitabha Buddha is the teacher of the blissful Western Pure Land. During Shakyamuni Buddha's lifetime, as recorded in the scriptures, he introduced his followers to Amitabha Buddha and the Pure Land, where Amitabha teaches and guides sentient beings. After attaining enlightenment, Shakyamuni Buddha gained the ability to use his wisdom and divine insight to clearly perceive the workings of all phenomena in the universe, including human existence. Thanks to this special ability, he was able to see the long process of Amitabha Buddha's cultivation over many kalpas, and also observe the living environment and lifestyle of the sentient beings in the Western Pure Land, governed by Amitabha Buddha. Thus, Amitabha Buddha was introduced to us by Shakyamuni Buddha. According to Shakyamuni's teachings, if humans wish to be reborn in the Western Pure Land after death, they must cultivate good deeds, live righteously, and diligently recite the sacred name Namo Amitabha Buddha during their lifetime. By doing so, upon death, they will be reborn in the Western Pure Land. After being reborn in the Western Pure Land, we will continue to practice with others under the guidance of Amitabha Buddha until we attain the holy fruit of liberation. In the Amitabha Sutra, as well as in the 18th vow, Amitabha Buddha vowed to guide those beings who diligently recite his name during their lifetime to be reborn in the Pure Land. The term Pure Land refers to a world of immense happiness, contrasting with a world of suffering. In this Pure Land, all beings no longer experience pain or suffering, but instead enjoy complete peace and joy. However, while beings in the Pure Land experience happiness, the ultimate goal of seeking rebirth, there is not merely to enjoy that peace. The true aim of seeking rebirth in the Pure Land is to attain full enlightenment or Buddhahood. In other words, the Pure Land is the supreme environment or means by which those who are reborn there will never regress on the path to enlightenment, nor will they fall back on the journey toward true happiness. The Amitabha Sutra describes the Pure Land as follows. The ground is made of gold, and everywhere is adorned with 7 layers of jeweled railings, 7 layers of jeweled nets, and 7 rows of jeweled trees. There are countless ponds made of precious materials such as gold, silver, lapis lazuli, crystal, and mother of pearl. The water in these ponds is pure and fragrant. In each pond, lotus flowers bloom with extraordinary and radiant colors. The sky is always showered with mandala flowers, and day and night, heavenly music plays in 6 periods. The air is filled with harmonious sounds from beautiful birds, such as cranes, peacocks, parrots, and saris, all created by Amitabha Buddha to proclaim the teachings such as the 5 faculties, 5 powers, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and the Noble Eightfold Path. Aside from the described living environment in the Amitabha Sutra, the core element of the Pure Land is the presence of Amitabha Buddha, its teacher, along with innumerable saints and people. Amitabha Buddha's radiance shines across the 10 directions, and his lifespan is boundless. His infinite light symbolizes great wisdom, and his boundless lifespan symbolizes compassion. Amitabha Buddha wishes to remain in the world for a long time to continue saving sentient beings. The Holy Assembly refers to those who have been taught and embraced by Amitabha Buddha, including bodhisattvas and those who have attained one of the 4 stages of sainthood. The people are those who are on the path of practice and are being guided by Amitabha Buddha and the bodhisattvas. According to the 48 vows of Amitabha Buddha, every individual in the Pure Land has 32 auspicious physical marks, a healthy and strong body without illness, and an immeasurable lifespan. They no longer need to worry about material needs such as food and clothing. And most importantly, their minds are all focused on the goal of achieving enlightenment. In summary, the Pure Land is the supreme environment that ensures practitioners never regress on the path to enlightenment. This supreme environment includes a beautiful world, sufficient economic resources, healthy bodies, wisdom, and the opportunity to learn and practice under the guidance of saints such as Amitabha Buddha and the Holy Assembly. Anyone with a determined mind, living in such a good environment, with stable health, economic conditions, and the encouragement of virtuous friends, will eventually reach their set goal, sooner or later. So, who has proven that the Pure Land exists? In the Amitabha Sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha and countless Buddhas from the 10 directions repeatedly reminded the assembly at the Lotus Pond to believe in the existence of the Pure Land. To demonstrate that the Pure Land truly exists, we must clearly understand the meaning of the word faith. In Buddhism, true faith means believing in the Buddha, the Dharma, teachings, and the Sangha, community of practitioners. According to the Avatamsaka Sutra, to dispel doubt and establish firm faith in the practice, the Buddha allowed the monks to question and carefully investigate his complete enlightenment. After that, the Buddha advised the monks to cultivate faith as follows. I place my faith in the teacher. He is the one who has fully awakened. The Dharma is skillfully taught, and the Sangha is practicing the path to liberation. Furthermore, the Buddha emphasized that this faith must be based on understanding and reason. How does this kind of faith, as taught by the Buddha, relate to faith in the existence of the Pure Land? Belief in the existence of the Pure Land is fundamentally based on belief in the Dharma, meaning belief in the Buddha's teachings, specifically the teachings of karma, cause and effect, dependent origination, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. In other words, we believe in the Four Noble Truths, and based on the law of karma and cause and effect, we come to know or believe in the existence of the Pure Land. The law of cause and effect is a universal law that not only operates across various realms, but also within the domain of human morality. When it comes to morality, if we create bad karma, the power of that bad karma will lead us into a lower, suffering realm. Conversely, if we create extreme bad karma, we will be reborn into realms of extreme suffering, such as hell, the realm of hungry ghosts, or the animal realm. On the other hand, if we cultivate extremely good karma, we will be reborn in the Pure Land. This extremely good karma refers to the practice of reciting Amitabha Buddha's name, combined with actions of body and speech rooted in compassion, aligning with the nature of Amitabha Buddha. Thus, our belief or knowledge of the existence of the Pure Land is based on the law of karma and cause and effect. The law of karma and cause and effect is a universal principle that we can all perceive and experience in our own lives. This is the meaning of faith based on understanding and reason, as taught by the Buddha in the Avatamsaka Sutra. Here, an important question arises. If the existence of the Pure Land is based on the clearly understandable and reasonable belief in karma and cause and effect, why did Shakyamuni Buddha say at the end of the Amitabha Sutra that this teaching is difficult to believe? The phrase difficult to believe must be understood as not living or practicing. Even though we intellectually understand the law of karma and cause and effect, we may not live or practice according to that understanding. When we know something, but do not wish to live by that knowledge, that is what is referred to as difficult to believe. Most of us prefer to believe in and live by things that offer immediate gratification, such as the promise of eternal happiness through wealth, fame, and material comfort, and we live by them with our hearts. In reality, however, wealth, fame, and material comfort are impermanent and cannot bring eternal happiness to human beings. Another important point that must be raised here is that many Buddhists who practice the method of reciting the Buddha's name believe in the existence of the Pure Land based on certain personal reasoning and experiences. These personal reasoning and experiences need to be explained and supplemented by the light of the teachings on karma and cause and effect. A classic example is the story of Venerable Master Kuan Tin. On October 25, 1967, at Mai Ta Nam Temple in Fujian Province, there was a sudden commotion. Why? Because the temple's abbot, Venerable Kuan Tin, while seated in meditation in the temple, suddenly disappeared. They searched the entire temple but could not find him. It was thought that the master had gone into seclusion to meditate in some cave. Thus, the monks and lay people of the temple hurried out to search over 100 caves, large and small, on the nearby Vanku mountain. However, they found no trace of him. Even a rescue team was dispatched to search the nearby lakes and deep ravines, but still, no sign of the master was found. Enthusiastic followers even searched the surrounding villages and towns, but after several years, there was still no news. Eventually, everyone assumed that Venerable Kuan Tin had passed away and entered rebirth in the Pure Land. Slowly, the search was called off. 6.5 years later, Venerable Kuan Tin suddenly reappeared before everyone. So where had Venerable Kuan Tin been all this time? According to the master himself, he had been in a cave meditating. Venerable Kuan Tin was said to be at the Maitreya Cave on Jushian Mountain in Deihua County, Fujian Province, and had never left even for a moment. In fact, people had searched the Maitreya cave, but for some reason, it seemed that the master was either invisible or had entered another dimension, making it impossible for anyone to see him. So, what had Venerable Quan Tin been doing for those 6.5 years? The master explained that his spirit had the good fortune of traveling to the Western Pure Land. Although it felt like he had only stayed there for one day, he had actually spent the entire time in that realm. What did he experience during that time? We will explore this in the next video. Through Venerable Quan Tin's story, we have more reason to believe in the existence of the Western Pure Land. He had recited the name of Amitabha Buddha his entire life, and thus he was given the opportunity to visit that realm, practice there, and return to the Saha world to spread the Dharma. According to the Amitabha Sutra, to be reborn in the Western Pure Land, beyond establishing faith in the existence of the Pure Land and its supreme environment, practitioners must make a vow and practice the recitation of the Buddha's name. Vowing here means to vow for rebirth in the Pure Land, which is extremely important. In the Amitabha Sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha and the Buddhas of the 10 directions repeatedly encourage sentient beings to make the vow to be reborn in the Pure Land, as this sets the goal and ideal for one's journey. The goal is the Western Pure Land, and the ultimate purpose is to attain Buddhahood or complete enlightenment. If someone recites the name of Amitabha Buddha but does not make the vow for rebirth in the Pure Land, even though they accumulate great merit from reciting the Buddha's name, they will not be reborn in the Pure Land. This can be compared to someone working without knowing why they are doing the work, or a person walking a road without knowing their destination. Alongside establishing faith and making the vow for rebirth, practitioners must also practice reciting Amitabha Buddha's name. Reciting means focusing the mind and acknowledging each moment. Practitioners can do this by reciting aloud, softly, silently, or mentally the name of Amitabha Buddha. This practice is clearly outlined in the Amitabha Sutra. Shakyamuni Buddha taught that, if a good son or good daughter wishes to be reborn in the Pure Land, they must recite the name of Amitabha Buddha with undivided focus for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, or 7 days. When the time of death comes, Amitabha Buddha and the Holy Assembly will appear before their eyes. At that moment, their mind will be in a state of concentration, free from confusion and distraction, and they will be immediately reborn in the Pure Land. Therefore, the key to practicing Amitabha Buddha recitation for rebirth is that the practitioner must be fully concentrated. To achieve such concentration, the practitioner must recite with single-minded devotion. This requires diligent effort and the commitment to make reciting the Buddha's name the primary focus of their life. In other words, the practitioner's mind must frequently recite Amitabha and express this recitation through actions and words, such as practicing vegetarianism, giving charity, and diligently cultivating in daily life. In reality, it is rare for someone who has not recited the Buddha's name throughout their life to be able to maintain single-minded recitation just 1 or 2 days before passing away. This is because, by viewing the recitation of Amitabha Buddha as the primary focus of life, the practitioner's mind becomes imbued with the essence of Amitabha Buddha, which is compassion and wisdom. Consequently, this mind will naturally lead the practitioner to rebirth in the Pure Land after death. In conclusion, the path to the Western Pure Land, according to the Buddha's teaching, does not require complex practices or harsh asceticism. It only requires sincere devotion and faith in Amitabha Buddha. Whether you recite the Buddha's name many times or a few times, what matters is the sincerity from the heart. The Pure Land is a place of ultimate peace, free from suffering, and anyone who has faith in the Buddha can reach this realm. The journey to the Pure Land is a journey toward peace and complete happiness. Wishing you success on this path.
Non-self in Buddhist thought. What is non-self? Our bodies are impermanent, our emotions are impermanent, and so are our perceptions. Anger, sadness, love, hatred, and all our mental states are impermanent. Non-self is a unique concept specific to Buddhism. While other philosophies and religions have touched on similar ideas, non-self is distinctively Buddhist. Non-self can be considered the pinnacle of wisdom, the ultimate goal of practice. All theories and practices in Buddhism aim to realize non-self. From birth to growth, maturity, aging, illness, and eventually death. Even in death, we think there is something invisible that governs our thoughts and actions. Some call it a soul, some call it ego, others call it consciousness, but we call it self. We think that within us is a singular self that doesn't change over time, or in other words, a self that is immutable. According to Buddhist teachings, this concept of an immutable existence is called self-attachment, which gives rise to self-love, meaning the care and preservation of the self. Because we love ourselves too much, our lives are entangled in the cycle of birth and death instead of living a noble and virtuous life. We enslave ourselves to satisfy the desires of the self out of fear of losing it one day. So what is non-self? First, we need to differentiate non-self from impermanence. When we say humans are impermanent, it is because we can see that we are constantly changing and transforming in every moment, both biologically and mentally. In form, we go through birth, aging, sickness, and death. But when we say we are non-self, we must see it through the lens of dependent origination, which means that a human being is a collection of conditions and interrelationships within family, society, and personal cultivation. Other philosophies have also mentioned the idea of impermanence. For instance, the philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "No one steps in the same river twice, because the river is constantly changing." Confucius wrote, "The flowing water never stops day or night," to describe the constant change. While both Western and Confucian philosophies recognize impermanence, they seem to lack the concept of non-self as proposed by Buddhism. Therefore, the Buddhist doctrine of non-self is a revolutionary teaching. In his second sermon at Deer Park, the Anattalokkana Sutta, the Buddha taught the nature of non-self within the 5 aggregates of a person. He said, "Bhikkhus, form is non-self. If form were self, it would not lead to affliction, and one could have it be this way or that way. But since form is non-self, it leads to affliction, and one cannot have it be this way or that way." The remaining aggregates, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, are similar. The 5 aggregates collectively create an illusion of a self or an unchanging being. From this false notion of self, people easily develop attachment, clinging, and suffering. Thus, non-self is a unique teaching in Buddhism, suggesting that there is no eternal, unchanging core. Everything exists through dependent origination and does not arise independently or have the power to control its own existence. According to Buddhism, the self is just an assembly of the 5 aggregates, constantly changing and perishing. Non-self is one of the 3 marks of existence, alongside suffering and impermanence. Whatever arises must cease, thus it is impermanent. What is impermanent is suffering. What is suffering and changes by its nature is non-self. Understanding the true nature of our psychophysical activities through these 3 marks, impermanence, suffering, and non-self, provides a clear insight into reality. Modern scientific discoveries also support the concept of non-self. For example, our brain comprises billions of cells, but no single cell commands the others. Instead, thoughts arise from the collective action of neurons. Neuroscientists say that the human brain functions like an orchestra without a conductor. Similarly, our sense of self is the result of numerous cells working together, without any single cell asserting itself as the leader. Some people think that a self is necessary to escape the cycle of birth and death and attain nirvana. Without a self who escapes the cycle, who attains nirvana, who sees, hears, practices, creates karma, and receives its results? These questions can create confusion and misunderstanding about the doctrine of non-self. Buddha's teachings on non-self emphasize renouncing the belief that I am an unchanging entity. He taught that the 5 aggregates, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, are not the self, and no self can be found in these aggregates. By denying the existence of an independent self, Buddhism dismantles the most deep-seated belief of humanity, the belief in a permanent self. Understanding non-self leads to a greater capacity for altruism and compassion, and it is the key to ending suffering and attaining enlightenment. Practitioners should contemplate non-self in every step they take. By closely observing and understanding the movements and perceptions, we can see the arising and ceasing of phenomena, recognizing the impermanence, suffering, and non-self of all conditioned things. To fully comprehend the non-self of all things, practitioners need to observe how everything in the world changes every second. This is called momentary impermanence. Everything in the world, including life, mountains, rivers, and political systems, undergoes stages of birth, existence, change, and destruction, known as cyclic impermanence. Observing this helps avoid the illusion of permanence and prevents attachment to things. Buddha taught that humans are composed of 5 aggregates: material form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. If the material form is made of the 4 elements and is empty, then humans, composed of the 5 aggregates, have no permanent self or unchanging essence. Humans change every second, experiencing both momentary and cyclic impermanence. Non-self is one of the 3 marks of existence, along with suffering and impermanence. Understanding the impermanent, suffering, and non-self nature of the 5 aggregates is crucial. When our thoughts are bound by the notion of a permanent self, the 3 marks of existence still hold value and relevance. Scientific findings also support the concept of non-self. For instance, the brain consists of billions of cells, but no single cell dominates. Each neuron contributes to the emergence of thoughts, much like musicians in an orchestra without a conductor. We might believe that a self is necessary to escape the cycle of birth and death and attain nirvana. Without a self, who transcends the cycle, who enters nirvana, who perceives, practices, creates karma, and experiences its consequences. Such misunderstandings can arise when considering the doctrine of non-self. Sometimes the teaching of non-self causes confusion and misunderstanding. Whenever we say "I am speaking" or "I am walking," we are not denying the reality of the self. Even Buddha used terms like Tathagata to refer to himself. When teaching about non-self, Buddha emphasized abandoning the belief in a permanent, unchanging self. He stated that the 5 aggregates are not the self, and no self can be found within them. Buddha's denial means rejecting the belief in an independent, permanent entity. A true self, if it existed, would be unchanging, eternal, and independent, but such a self cannot be found anywhere. When Buddha introduced the concept of non-self, he revolutionized the prevailing views of the universe and human existence. His teachings challenged the deep-seated belief in a permanent self. Those who understand non-self realize that it is a means to counteract the belief in a self, not an ultimate truth. The concept of non-self is a tool, not a goal. If it becomes another fixed idea, it should also be broken down like any other concept. The law of non-self posits that nothing exists independently or permanently. We can categorize non-self into 3 types: non-self of the body, non-self of the mind, and non-self of the environment. Firstly, the non-self of the body means that our physical form is illusory and lacks control. We cannot make it young forever or prevent it from aging and dying, even if we are highly skilled. Secondly, the non-self of the mind indicates that our mental states are fleeting and lack stability, like feelings of joy and sorrow that come and go without substance. Thirdly, the non-self of the environment means that the surrounding world is like a dream, constantly changing and influenced by impermanence. Buddha used these analyses to demonstrate that the self is never found in the body or mind. He explained that the body is not the self because it is impermanent and subject to aging, decay, and death. The body cannot be the self because it often acts contrary to our desires. Similarly, the mind is not the self because it is always changing and restless. As long as we cling to the notion of self, we will feel compelled to protect our possessions, reputation, and even our words. But once we let go of the belief in an independent self, we can live comfortably and peacefully with others. Buddha taught that understanding non-self is the key to enlightenment. Belief in a self is synonymous with ignorance, one of the 3 primary defilements. Recognizing that the self is a construct helps us avoid attachment and division. When we focus on others instead of ourselves, we practice non-self by making others the focal point of our thoughts. This shifts our mindset from self-centeredness to altruism, making us more compassionate and kind. This approach is essential for practicing non-self effectively. As we deepen our understanding of non-self and the interdependence of all phenomena, we will move away from the mistaken belief in an independent self. This realization promotes respect for others, adherence to laws, and appreciation for the interconnectedness of life. Understanding dependent origination encourages us to contribute positively to building a peaceful world. This wisdom liberates individuals from the most profound pains and stresses of life and fosters world peace. If you find this video challenging, watch it again and reflect deeply on what I've shared. I hope you soon learn to let go of internal burdens and live a truly happy life. The benefits of non-self. Everything is impermanent and ever-changing, including our bodies, emotions, and perceptions. There is nothing we can truly call the self. All things in this world are interdependent and constantly in flux. For example, to have a piece of paper, we need the earth, the sun, trees, clouds, machines, and people. Without these conditions, the paper could not exist. Similarly, a flower cannot exist on its own. It needs the earth, rain, sunlight, grass, and insects. There is no independent existence. Non-self means that nothing exists independently or permanently. It is a continuous process of change in every moment. This practice helps us let go of attachment and avoid creating suffering for ourselves and others. In Buddhism, non-self is one of the three marks of existence, along with impermanence and suffering. Every phenomenon arises due to conditions and ceases when those conditions change. Understanding non-self involves recognizing that what we perceive as a self is just a collection of the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, which are constantly changing. There are three famous Buddhist sayings. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent. All conditioned phenomena are suffering, and all phenomena are non-self. This means not only humans, but all things are non-self. Everything is subject to change and cannot exist independently. Everyone inherently loves their own self and carries this attachment throughout life. The more we cling to the self, the more we suffer. This deep-rooted habit is hard to change. Therefore, understanding non-self is essential for those who follow the Buddha's teachings. Observing the principles of dependent origination and impermanence helps us see that all things are interconnected and constantly changing without a permanent self. For example, observing a leaf, we see that it contains water, minerals from the soil, and sunlight. The leaf changes color from green to yellow to brown and eventually decomposes into the soil. There is no permanent, unchanging leaf. Similarly, our bodies are composed of earth, water, fire, and air. These elements come together to form our bodies, which constantly change. Cells die and regenerate daily, so our bodies today are not the same as yesterday. This means our bodies are impermanent and non-self. Our minds are also impermanent. Sometimes we feel happy, sometimes sad. Our thoughts are always changing, so we are not our thoughts. When we cling to a fixed idea of self, we suffer. Recognizing the impermanent nature of body and mind helps us let go of this attachment, leading to peace and happiness. The concept of non-self means that there is no permanent, unchanging core within us. Understanding this helps us reduce selfishness and live more for others. Acts of generosity, compassion, patience, meditation, and recitation of the Buddha's teachings help us forget ourself and approach the state of non-self. People who often engage in charitable activities and help others usually find themselves happier and more at peace than those who are self-centered. To realize non-self, we should frequently contemplate the principles of dependent origination, impermanence, suffering, and non-self in our daily lives. We should strive to let go of selfishness, live for others, and place the benefit of others above our own. This practice will bring us joy and peace. The teachings of non-self are foundational in Buddhism. When applied to daily life, we see the benefits clearly. Everyone experiences suffering due to attachment to self. The more we cling to the self, the greater our suffering. Conversely, understanding and practicing non-self leads to freedom and tranquility. Non-self helps us reduce attachment to possessions and ideas. When we do not see our possessions as extensions of ourselves, we suffer less when we lose them. Understanding non-self also helps us be more humble and less prone to conflicts over opinions. Buddha taught that understanding non-self is the key to enlightenment. Belief in a self is a form of ignorance, one of the three primary defilements. Realizing non-self helps us avoid attachment and division, leading to peace and liberation. To truly understand non-self, one must practice deeply and diligently. Generosity, compassion, patience, meditation, and reciting the Buddha's teachings help us forget the self and move towards non-self. Helping others and living selflessly bring us happiness and peace. Living with the understanding of non-self brings numerous benefits. It reduces suffering and helps us live more harmoniously with others. When we let go of the belief in a permanent self, we can live freely and peacefully. Buddha's teachings on non-self are profound and revolutionary, offering a path to freedom from suffering and the attainment of ultimate peace and happiness. Living a life without self. The Buddha taught that those who studied Buddhism must live among the sick without being sick themselves. Living healthily is true happiness. The reason we live disconnected from each other is primarily because of this self. If it didn't exist, what would create the separation? That is the root of the problem, so each person must learn to forget this separating self. It is an illusory self, not a real one. According to Buddhist teachings, it is the ignorant, deluded self, a false, inverted self. Clinging to this self, we see it as important, needing to protect it, fearing harm, loss, and insult, which creates separation. But when we carefully consider what this self is, where it comes from, is the head me, or the eyes me, or the mouth me, or the hands and feet me, none of these alone can be considered me. The combination of these parts is temporarily called me, but if separated, there is no real me. Looking deeper, initially, it's a combination from our parents, then combining earth, water, wind, fire, the hard substances, the wet substances, heat, and movement, which are physical elements. Feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness are the mental aspects, forming the 5 aggregates. Because of delusional attachment, we cling to it, and when someone touches it, we react, creating separation. Today, as we study the Dharma, we must understand this thoroughly and not ignore it. The self is just a combination of the 5 aggregates, called the family of 5 brothers: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. Adding ignorant father and craving mother, they become the family of 5 aggregates with no real self. So why allow this illusory self to cause separation? As students of the Dharma, we should skillfully add faith to life, live closely with one another, making life brighter and happier. The Buddha taught that it is the deluded, illusory self, not real. Yet people are deceived by it. Countless people in this world are infatuated with it. Of the billions of people on this earth, how many billions are deceived by it? It even deceives those with clear vision. Truly, O myself, where did you come from? That causes such delusion throughout the realm of samsara. We don't know where it comes from, yet it deludes everyone in the realm of samsara. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, "This city is built of bones, plastered with flesh and blood. Herein are stored up aging and death, pride and deceit. This body is like a fortress. This fortress is built of bones, plastered with flesh and blood, and eventually leads to aging and death. Within it are pride and deceit, which feed the false ego." Those who study the Dharma need the wisdom to clearly perceive this delusional folly. Reflect deeply on the 5 aggregates. Form. Before conception, this body did not exist, and after death it turns to ashes. Thus, before conception it did not exist, and after death it is as if it never was. In between, it temporarily exists but constantly changes. Young today, old tomorrow, or ill, always in flux, so what can we cling to? There is nothing substantial to cling to in this form. Feeling. These are sensations and feelings that arise in response to objects. When the eyes meet visual forms or the ears meet sounds and so on, feelings arise. These feelings only temporarily exist when in contact with objects and cease when the contact stops. Perception. This involves memory and recognition of past, present, and future events. Perception is also illusory. Without objects to perceive, what is there to perceive? There is no true place for perception to rely on. Mental formations. These are subtle, fleeting thoughts and mental activities, constantly arising and ceasing. There is nothing here that can be called self. Consciousness, vijnana. This is the discriminative awareness that accumulates false notions and external impressions to form discriminative knowledge. When these are all exhausted, consciousness also becomes void. Buddhism teaches us to start from the basics. Each person must purify their inner mind to be good and healthy, which will then radiate outward. A peaceful mind will spread peace externally, ensuring that the world also becomes peaceful. Among these components, what can we call self that separates us from each other? These are merely false, unreal thoughts that create obstacles. We must have a proper understanding of the Dharma, which goes against delusion, constantly illuminating the correct path and bringing the Dharma to enlighten the world. This is the path of the wise, where people meet in the light. On the contrary, living according to delusion means abandoning the Dharma. Abandoning the Dharma to follow delusion is living in darkness, covered by ignorance, creating separation. A life of separation is divided, dull, and devoid of meaning. Turning life into death brings immediate suffering. Why should we live this way? As students of the Dharma, we must skillfully add faith to life, live closely with each other, making life brighter and more joyful. The Dhammapada contains this verse: the diligent and vigilant, always mindful of the body, avoid what should be avoided, strive to do what should be done. The mindful and wise eliminate their defilements. The Buddha taught that those who are diligent and vigilant should observe the body to dispel delusions about it. Knowing its true nature as a composite, we must constantly practice mindfulness and awareness. Awareness follows the Dharma, knowing what should be done, and not following delusion. Delusion leads to suffering and separation, which is not worth pursuing. Striving to do what should be done is living according to the Dharma. The worldly way is often the opposite, doing what shouldn't be done and not doing what should be done, leading to sorrow, lamentation, and cries for help. But who can save us? We must gradually shift our way of living to align with the Dharma. As delusion and afflictions diminish, suffering will be eradicated. On the contrary, living in delusion brings darkness and suffering upon ourselves, not from others. The Dhammapada also teaches, happy indeed we live, we who possess nothing. Feeders on joy we shall be like the radiant gods. Happiness comes from living free from disease amidst the sick. On the other hand, living among the sick while also being sick brings no joy. If the mind is still filled with afflictions, it will affect the outside, preventing peace. If everyone in the world had a peaceful and pure mind, this world would transform into a pure land. Worldly people are living in illness, suffering, and affliction, each day gradually depleting their lives. The Buddha taught that those who study Buddhism must live among the sick without being sick themselves. Living healthily is true happiness. We must practice reflection to forget the separation between ourselves and others, to foster closeness and move towards the light of the Dharma together. In the chapter, Entering the Bodhisattva Path, Bodhisattva Shantideva reminds everyone to practice reflection. Regarding the blood and essence of others, which is not my body, I habitually consider it as myself due to long-standing delusion. Why then can I see the bodies of others as myself? Thus, exchanging my body for the body of others is not that difficult. Reflecting in this way will bring us closer to each other. Shantideva said that the essence of others is not inherently our body, yet due to long-standing habits, we mistakenly see the accumulation of this essence as ourself and accept it as our body. This means that even though the essence from our parents is not inherently us, we still consider it as ourselves. Similarly, why can't we see the bodies of others as ourselves? Shantideva said that with this perspective, exchanging our body for the body of others is not difficult. With this view, we will reduce the distance between ourselves and others. Living closer together brings peace to ourselves and others and fosters world peace. Buddhism teaches us to start from the basics, purifying our inner minds to be good and healthy, which will then radiate outward. A peaceful mind will spread peace externally, ensuring that the world also becomes peaceful. If the mind is still afflicted, it will affect the outside, preventing peace. If everyone in the world had a peaceful and pure mind, this world would transform into a pure land.
Prophecy 2025, the Japanese monk's prediction of 3 impending disasters. In the serene atmosphere of a temple in Kyoto, a humble-looking monk named Daun Miki has become a phenomenon with his prophecies that are steeped in Buddhist philosophy while revealing troubling upheavals in the world. Daun Miki is renowned for his ability to sense the scent of death, feel the energy of future events, and make astonishing predictions. According to him, the year 2025 will mark a pivotal point for our planet, with catastrophic climate change, the rise of new pandemics, and smoldering conflicts on the brink of explosion. He warns that this is not only a time of trials, but also a period when humanity must face the consequences of greed and environmental destruction. In his teachings, the monk vividly describes a breaking point where nature will retaliate and society will be deeply divided, pushing humanity into chaos. He references the arrival of 3 calamities and 7 misfortunes. What is remarkable is that his predictions bear a striking resemblance to those of renowned seers like Nostradamus, Baba Vanga, and even Ananda. However, unlike others who paint a bleak future, Don Miki offers a path illuminated by consciousness and compassion, showing how humanity can navigate through the darkness. We are entering a phase where every decision can shape the fate of an entire planet. What disasters could 2025 bring? What are the 3 calamities and 7 misfortunes? All of this will be unveiled in today's discussion. In recent years, Don Miki has shaken Japan with his extraordinary abilities. He is said to transcend the boundaries between the human world, the spirit realm, and the divine. People believe he can communicate with spirits, receive messages from deities, and even foresee the deaths of others. His accurate prediction of the COVID-19 pandemic, global conflicts, and significant political events, such as the appointment of Japan's prime minister, has further cemented his reputation. One of the most chilling stories about him occurred in 1993. While studying Buddhist philosophy at a prestigious university, Don Miki went out for a leisurely stroll with his camera. Passing by a pet store with adorable dogs, he snapped some photos. Unexpectedly, the store owner rushed out, but Miki immediately apologized. The owner not only invited him in for a tour, but also offered him coffee. 8 cans of coffee were placed before him, and Miki only drank 1 before leaving. The store owner even offered him a job with a generous salary of 150,000 yen, equivalent to 25 million VND, but Miki declined, believing that monks should detach from worldly desires. 3 years later, as he was preparing to continue his religious journey in Tokyo, he returned to bid farewell to the store owner, who once again laid out 8 cans of coffee. Miki drank just 1 and left after a brief conversation. 3 years later, Miki was horrified to see news reports identifying the store owner as a notorious serial killer targeting dog lovers. The man had confessed that he had tested whether divine protection existed by planning to poison a monk. In all 3 encounters, only 1 can of coffee was untainted, and Miki had miraculously chosen the safe one each time. Born in 1972 in Kyoto, Japan, Don Miki came from a family of monks. In Japan, monks are allowed to marry. According to a mysterious chronicle from Kyoto, Miki was a lively and well-mannered child. He would politely greet guests and serve them tea. Yet one day he realized that he was the only one who could see those guests. In 1977, when Miki was 5 years old, he awoke one night to hear an eerie voice calling his name. Cold hands grabbed his legs, pulling him downward. Frightened, he sat up but saw no one. Gradually, he discovered that he could see beings invisible to others. However, Miki later clarified that he didn't always see them, but could often sense the scent of death. One day during a family meal, he noticed a distinct smell of death coming from his father. Despite his confusion, he bravely asked, "Father, would you like to see a doctor tomorrow?" His mother scolded him, dismissing his comment as nonsense. Yet soon after, his father was diagnosed with stomach cancer and given only 6 months to live. With devoted care from the family, his father lived for 2 more years before passing away. Miki's extraordinary ability is not entirely unique. In another story, an English boy reportedly saw auras around people, which turned gray when someone was gravely ill. In the US, a hospice recorded the behavior of a cat named Oscar, who would comfort elderly residents hours before their deaths. Oscar's predictions were accurate for 25 cases. Once, while browsing a bookstore, Miki smelled death. He identified an elderly man as the source. Hesitant to speak, fearing he would be dismissed as mad, Miki was surprised when the man approached him. Summoning his courage, Miki said, "You don't look well. Perhaps you should see a doctor." The elderly man smiled, thanked him, and said, "I don't think I'll need a doctor anymore." After speaking, the man vanished. He had passed away moments earlier, his soul lingering for just a brief moment. Miki did not regard his ability to see spirits or sense death as a special gift. Instead, he viewed it as a reminder of life's impermanence and the importance of compassion and awareness. According to Buddhism, all sentient beings go through 4 states known as the 4 existences. The first is birth existence, the moment when life is formed in the mother's womb. The second is life existence, the period of living in the world. The third is death existence, the moment of departing from the world. The fourth is intermediate existence, the transitional phase between death and rebirth. In the intermediate state, the soul undergoes 49 days of trials before continuing the cycle of reincarnation within the 6 realms. If you want details about these trials, please refer to our video about the 6 realms of rebirth on our channel. In Buddhism, although the body may die, the soul continues to exist and follows karmic ties to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Notably, Mickey once personally witnessed evidence of reincarnation. After graduating from university, Mickey began a wandering life dedicated to spiritual practice. Although his family owned a temple, being the second son, he could not inherit it according to tradition. During his travels, where he sought shelter and practiced at various temples, Mickey developed a unique habit. He would visit parks at night to preach to groups of wandering youths. He often began with, "Let me tell you a ghost story," as he found this method captivated the youth's attention. Over time, many of them became devoted to Buddhism. One day, Mickey received an invitation to India to participate in a Buddhist exchange program. Upon arriving at Rajgir, one of Buddhism's 8 sacred sites, where Shakyamuni Buddha once gave teachings after his enlightenment, and where the first Buddhist council took place after his passing, Mickey was ecstatic. However, he unexpectedly encountered a miraculous event of reincarnation. While walking down a street near Rajgir, an Indian man approached him and asked in Japanese, "Are you Japanese?" Mickey was astonished to meet someone speaking Japanese in India. They quickly struck up a conversation, and the man introduced himself as a dairy farmer who had studied in Japan in his youth, which is why he spoke some Japanese. The man mentioned that there was a cow on his farm that he suspected was Japanese in its previous life. Whenever he spoke Japanese, the cow would come close and even shed tears. The man invited Mickey to the farm to see for himself. Without hesitation, Mickey agreed and followed him. Upon arrival, the man called out in Japanese, "A Japanese person has come." Instantly, a cow ran toward them. Mickey approached the cow and asked in Japanese, "Were you Japanese in your past life?" The cow nodded while tears streamed down its face, even making sounds as if it was crying. Mickey was stunned, overwhelmed with questions. Who was this cow in its past life? Where was it born in Japan? Why was it reincarnated as a cow? However, when he was about to ask, he noticed the cow's tear-filled eyes and instead asked gently, "Do you remember your past life?" The cow nodded again. At that moment, Mickey began chanting the Lotus Sutra to help the cow absolve its karmic burdens. According to Buddhist beliefs, being reborn as an animal is often due to negative karma from past lives or even ancient past lives. After chanting, Mickey promised the cow that he would return the next day to visit. However, that night at the guest house, he couldn't sleep, reflecting on how people disbelieve in reincarnation because they cannot see or experience it firsthand. Yet now, he had found living proof of its existence. The next morning, the farmer hurriedly informed Mickey that the cow seemed unwell. Mickey rushed to the farm and found the cow lying on the grass, looking frail. He approached and spoke in Japanese, "Are you okay?" The cow weakly moved and nodded in response, but soon closed its eyes and lay motionless. Although Mickey couldn't uncover the full story of the cow's reincarnation, he believed the event held profound meaning. He resolved to continue exploring the mysteries of reincarnation. In 2005, after years of wandering, Mickey was appointed the 38th head monk of Linku Temple, an ancient temple founded in 1661. However, due to years of neglect, the temple had fallen into severe disrepair. The roof leaked everywhere, and many Buddha statues were damaged, with some missing limbs. Mickey quickly realized that raising funds to restore the statues was his most important mission. After tidying up the temple, Mickey fell into an exhausted sleep. That night, he had a surprising dream. In the dream, he saw Daikokuten, the Indian deity of wealth, who was later adopted into Buddhism as a protective deity. In Japan, Daikokuten merged with local culture and became one of the 7 lucky gods, symbolizing wealth and prosperity. Typically depicted as a majestic and affluent figure, Daikokuten in Mickey's dream wore tattered clothes and slowly walked toward the temple gate. Before leaving, Daikokuten waved and said, "Goodbye." Mickey saw something fall from Daikokuten's pouch and shouted, "Daikokuten, you dropped something!" But Daikokuten only smiled and replied, "That's my gift to you." Mickey suddenly awoke and found himself kneeling on a meditation cushion instead of lying in bed. Though he had experienced many strange events throughout his life, this was the first time something like this had happened. He wondered, could there really be a statue of Daikokuten in this temple? The next morning, he decided to thoroughly search the temple and, as expected, discovered a heavily damaged statue of Daikokuten in a corner of the main hall. Remarkably, the statue's pouch had a torn spot, just like in his dream. Mickey worked tirelessly to raise funds for the temple's restoration. After some time, he raised enough money to restore the Buddha statues, but not enough to repair Daikokuten's statue. Feeling remorseful, Mickey turned to the statue and said, "I'm sorry, but the funds are insufficient, so I'll have to make you wait a little longer." After saying this, Mickey suddenly realized, "Wait, you're Daikokuten, the deity of wealth. Surely, you can help me find the money to complete the repairs." The next morning, a young mother and her son visited the temple. She explained that she wanted to donate her entire savings and asked Mickey to write her son's name on the donor list to bless him. Touched, Mickey asked why. She replied, "I'm a single mother who works constantly to support my son and don't have much time to spend with him. I want to accumulate merit for him." Moved by her sincerity, Mickey initially declined the donation, but eventually accepted after her insistence. Silently, he prayed, "Daikokuten, please find a way to repay this family." Before they left, Mickey suggested, "There's a lottery booth down the street. Why not try your luck?" A few days later, the mother returned to the temple in tears. She shared that after donating the money, she had planned to end her life and her son's due to unbearable hardships. However, remembering Mickey's words, she bought a lottery ticket and won 100,000 yen, exactly the amount she had donated. Through her tears, she exclaimed, "Daikokuten truly returned the money to us." But the story didn't end there. After redeeming the ticket, she decided to take her son to a fancy restaurant they had always dreamed of visiting. However, the restaurant was closed that day due to staff vacations. On their way home, they passed a horse racing kiosk. Although she typically had no interest in such things, she inexplicably bought a ticket and won 10 million yen. She used the winnings to open a small shop and donated the rest to the temple. News of Daikokuten's blessings at Lin-ku Temple spread far and wide, attracting many visitors. Thanks to their support, Mickey soon raised enough funds to restore Daikokuten's statue. When the work was completed, Mickey remembered the dream he had on his first night at the temple, where Daikokuten left the temple gates. He realized that everything was connected. Mickey stood before Daikokuten's statue and said, "I've restored your statue. If you have returned, please show me a sign." Miraculously, a local Buddhist shop owner soon shared a strange incident. A customer had ordered a Buddha pedestal, but when completed, the statue was too large for it. The owner was about to discard the pedestal when he realized it fit perfectly with Daikokuten's statue. He donated it to the temple. A few days later, workers demolishing a nearby site unexpectedly uncovered statues of the 7 lucky gods. Unsure what to do, they brought the statues to Lin-ku Temple. Mickey smiled and thought, is this Daikokuten's way of saying that he has returned and brought his friends with him? 10 years later, a major crisis arose. Due to consecutive typhoons and earthquakes, the temple buildings became severely weakened, threatening collapse unless repaired. Mickey invited construction experts to estimate the cost, and the figure came to 1.8 billion yen. Mickey was overwhelmed by the astronomical amount. In his despair, he had another extraordinary dream. In his dream, Mickey saw a giant airship stop at Lin-ku Temple. Upon closer inspection, he recognized the 7 lucky gods. While Mickey was still bewildered, Daikokuten suddenly spoke, "Hurry and buy Gohua." The dream ended, and Mickey awoke with a start, realizing he was kneeling on a cushion, just as he had in the dream 10 years ago. The next morning, still puzzled, Mickey went to a pork shop and awkwardly asked the owner, "Could you sell me some pork belly, specifically Gohua?" The shop owner burst out laughing. "Are you planning to eat pork belly today, monk?" Mickey replied, "No, I dreamed that Daikokuten told me to buy gohua." Upon hearing this, the shop owner immediately understood the meaning and said, "Daikokuten wasn't talking about pork belly, he was telling you to buy lottery tickets." It turns out that in Japanese, the pronunciation of gohua is similar to that of a special type of lottery ticket. Mickey promptly went to a lottery shop and bought 10 special tickets. He was astonished to see the 7 lucky gods printed on the tickets. However, due to his busy schedule, he quickly forgot to check the results. A few months later, Mickey had another dream about Daikokuten. This time, Daikokuten said, "Mickey, the fruits of fortune are ripe. Go harvest them." Mickey awoke suddenly and immediately remembered the lottery tickets. When he checked them, he was stunned to discover that he had won the grand prize, 1.5 billion yen. The story of Daikokuten and the miracles at Linku Temple quickly spread far and wide. With this sum, Mickey not only fully restored the temple, but also carried out numerous charitable activities, spreading Buddhist teachings and compassion to many people. Remarkably, Mickey publicly displayed his winning lottery ticket, confirming that the jackpot number was indeed 17498. He used the winnings, along with contributions from devotees, to completely renovate Linku Temple, making it more famous than ever. Since then, Mickey continued to experience mysterious phenomena that science could not explain. Humanity has always been curious about the spiritual world. According to records, one of the individuals who was considered closest to divinity once attempted to contact the spirit world. One night in 1901, Nikola Tesla experienced one of the most terrifying nights of his life. Alone in his laboratory, Tesla felt an eerie presence around him. To investigate, he later invented a device he called the spirit receiver, aiming to detect the existence of the afterlife. Tesla claimed that his device captured sounds resembling human voices, speaking in a language he couldn't understand. Some speculated that Tesla might have received signals from extraterrestrials, while others believed the sounds were from the spirit world. However, some discovered that using interference methods could produce similar effects. In his teachings, Mickey once mentioned that Buddhism, with its doctrine of reincarnation, inherently suggests that the soul is real. Mickey firmly believed this, not only because he could perceive spirits, but also due to his extraordinary experiences with devotees. Aside from mysterious stories, Mickey was also known for another ability: prophecy. In 2010, when Mickey was still an unknown monk, during a public lecture, he stated that based on his studies of Buddhist scriptures, from 2010 onward, the gates of calamity would open, leading to the occurrence of the 3 calamities and the 7 disasters. Mickey clarified that he wasn't referring to the traditional gates of calamity that open during the 7th lunar month, but rather to a cosmic cycle of disasters, recurring every 10 years. So what are the 3 calamities and 7 disasters? According to Buddhist scriptures, the 3 calamities are divided into the Great 3 Calamities and the Minor 3 Calamities. The Great 3 Calamities relate to the cosmic cycle of formation, stability, destruction, and emptiness, which can lead to the complete annihilation of the universe. The Minor 3 Calamities, which Mickey referenced, are human world disasters significant enough to threaten humanity's survival, but not the entire universe. In other words, Mickey predicted that from 2010 onward, the world would face severe crises, including the 3 calamities and the 7 disasters. The 7 disasters, as described in the Medicine Buddha Sutra, are: plague disaster, a pandemic causing massive loss of life. This aligns with the COVID-19 pandemic. Foreign invasion disaster, involving warfare and external aggression, possibly referring to the conflicts involving Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. Internal rebellion disaster, referring to civil unrest or political assassinations. Some believe this corresponds to the assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and recent assassination attempts on former US President Donald Trump. Celestial phenomena disaster, astronomical events leading to terrestrial disturbances. In ancient times, it was believed that when the 5 stars align, significant events occur on Earth. Recently, such celestial phenomena have been occurring frequently. Notably, on June 3rd, August 29th, and January 18th, 2025, the 6-star alignment will occur. Even more astonishingly, on March 28, 2025, the 7-star alignment will take place. Solar and lunar eclipse disaster. Solar and lunar eclipses, which have become more frequent in recent years, including the total solar eclipse observed in April in the US. Unseasonal storms and rains, abnormal weather patterns causing destructive storms and snowfall in unexpected seasons. Drought disaster, referring to droughts causing crop failures and famine. In 2011, just a year after Mickey's prophecy, the devastating earthquake on March 11 in Japan made many believe his predictions were coming true, signaling the potential end of the world. However, Mickey reassured the public, explaining that the 3 calamities and 7 disasters must occur in a specific order to signify the end times. This brought some relief to the people. But in 2020, with the outbreak of COVID-19, followed by Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, and the assassination of Shinzo Abe, many began to worry that events were unfolding exactly as Mickey had foretold. During an interview on a YouTube channel in Japan, Mickey explained that the apocalypse is not inevitable, but depends entirely on humanity's choices. If people continue to indulge in selfishness, greed, resentment, and environmental destruction, disasters and the end of the world could become a reality. However, he emphasized that if humanity changes its behavior, embraces compassion, and acts with goodwill, the world could move toward peace and prosperity. Mickey concluded, "If you study Buddhist scriptures carefully, you'll realize they describe the universal truth." So what is truth? In mathematical terms, 1 + 1 = 2 is a truth, an unchanging law that applies universally, at all times to everyone without exception. Perhaps this is why Buddhist concepts such as formation, stability, destruction, and emptiness align so closely with modern scientific theories about the formation, evolution, decay, and collapse of the universe, as well as the existence of multiple dimensions of time and space. The scriptures also contain vast wisdom about life principles, ways of treating others, and even prophecies about disasters if cosmic laws are not followed. This is what Mickey referred to as blessed calamities and strange disasters. He always emphasized that he was not a prophet, but simply someone who had studied what was already recorded in the scriptures. The purpose of Buddhist scriptures, he explained, is not to predict the end of the world, but to serve as a guide to help humanity avoid misfortune. Reading and applying the teachings not only helps prevent calamity, but also offers the opportunity to attain enlightenment. In this interview, it is noteworthy that Mickey specifically mentioned the year 2025. Indeed, 2025 is also the year that many prophets throughout history have predicted major events. Mickey shared his belief that 2025 and the years to follow may witness unusual astronomical phenomena, climate change, food crises, and other disasters. However, he emphasized that these disasters could be altered by the intentions and actions of humanity. Mickey stated, "The future is not set in stone. Although we may currently see a world filled with suffering through clairvoyance, the future can still be changed. It depends on how each of us acts in the present moment." He further stressed that all Buddhist teachings encourage people to maintain sincerity and positive thoughts. "The way we live in the present will determine whether the future can become better," he said. Therefore, even though many prophets have forecast significant events for the coming year, Mickey believes there is no need to be fearful, as long as we maintain a kind heart and positive energy. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Don't hesitate to share your views in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated with our latest videos. That's all for now. Goodbye, and see you next time.